When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me, shape-shifting in the night, stalking you. Does my face seem familiar? Does my back tell you more? Will I change you or will it end you? And the power that I have can give you eternal life. Death doesn't know me, I've become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me, where the mist, she follows me. I walk alone in the night, watching you, following you, leading on you through the night. surrounds me. Oh, your life, I was still. I've become the living dead. I own the darkness and know how beats inside of me. I've become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me.
Nervousness born from the earth, my madness came by storm. I heard heaven and hell, but how can I be mad? Across the table, I'll tell you the tale. I wanted for nothing from the old man, not even gold. I'll tell no lie, it was the old man's eye, a veiled pale blue eye. Peering into it, my blood ran cold. And my heart is where I hold a secret plan for this old man. A descent into madness, it cannot be, it was the old man, not me. A pounding, a beating, the heart kept screaming. You may think me mad, but how for madness knows nothing. I sit here, my mind clear, this tale I tell. Are these the sounds from hell? 7 days I crept planning, but never did the eye reveal itself till that night. A slip, a sound, awakened did he, but I could not flee. I felt his fear, that we tried to comfort and steer his dread, for he lay back in his bed. In flash I jumped on him, dragging him down. Now no more sound, he lie there, dead on the ground. A descent into madness, it cannot be, it was the old man, not me. A pounding, a beating, the heart kept screaming. Both fear and glee swept over me. No one would ever find the body. Sometime now they came, sat chatting, but I could hear it, the heart beating. It grew louder and louder, I could no longer contain myself as I slid the chair. They still stayed there, not leaving, my anxiety rising. Could they not hear the beating heart coming from beyond the dark? No longer could I stand it, came my admittance. Here it is, the beating of his hideous heart. A descent into madness, it cannot be, it was the old man, not me. A pounding, a beating, the heart kept screaming.
I don't wanna be left in this place. I confess my sins again and again, brought down to my knees. Please, Father, set me free. I know you see all the pain inside me. Rosary, Mother, Mother Mary, can you help me? Please, God, don't forsake me. Remember me, holding on tightly to my rosary. I'm a sinner, from cradle to grave. Jesus, I hope it is I that you save. The tears I've cried regarding my life, please, Lord, don't cut me out of the book of life. Rosary, Mother Mary, can you help me? Please, God, don't forsake me. Remember me, holding on tightly to my rosary. My repentant heart bleeds, my spirit cries. I'm completely dying inside. My sins are great.
Oh man. Maybe get this thing to stand up. This thing's it's always trying to fall down. Hang on, folks. I'm gonna do it. There we go. We did it.
With the strength of Hercules.
I was watching that documentary about the Cowboys. You know, that
Yeah, it was pretty
the
interesting.
gambler and his Cowboys, you know,
Yeah.
from Netflix. Because I'm a long time diehard Cowboys fan. I can't stand Jerry Jones, man. Just looking at his face on there, you know, and then Barry Switzer. We're gonna do it, baby. You Barry, get out of here, dude. I don't care how much the players were endeared to you. I don't give a crap what you did. He won a Super Bowl. Yeah, you won with Jimmy's team. Troy said it best. He said if Jimmy stays the coach, he don't know if they would have won a bunch of Super Bowls, but they would have been competitive.
Yeah.
That's what matters. Anthony didn't put. Just leave it there when he comes back. I don't want you touching it for obvious reasons.
I'm a stinky boy.
Just don't want you touching it right now. But you know, I always when I watch that, I just think of what could have been, what might have been if people could work together. You know, if people could work together and they could
curb their egos.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit Jimmy, but more Jerry. You know, I've had a lot of people over the years tell me that I have a very Jimmy Johnson type personality. In fact, I've been called a human cattle prod and trying to get things done, and trying to push. You know, and it's my personality. It resonates with me. You know, and the things that, you know, it's funny. I was watching an interview with Jimmy Johnson, and he was talking about when he was a kid, he wanted a pet monkey. You know, and I'm the same way. When I was a little kid, that's what I wanted, a pet monkey. You know, there were certain things that I wanted as a child, and that was one of them. I always wanted a monkey, like a little monkey. You know, not a big one, but you know, one that would go and grab me like a drink out of the fridge or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just like a buddy. You know, because I lived out in the country, and sometimes I was alone. And I just wish I had like a friend, you know, that would always be around to hang out with or whatever. But when I got older, I had a friend who had a spider monkey, and I thought, I don't want to be around something that much. But, you know, it's a full-time you like job. Your privacy too, and it's kind of like this thing is just he's just you know, you're like, dude, no man, I'm good.
He's like a full-time baby that doesn't grow up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you said. There's Anthony. So I think that what we took away from all that is when two people have, or multiple people have something good together, it works. But when they go separate, and you know, a lot of times it doesn't. That formula is not there. Jimmy didn't have success when he went to Miami Dolphins. But and we're just getting people in here, folks. We have a heck of a show going tonight. It's gonna be good, like always. But he didn't have that same success. And I can tell you, it wasn't there because he didn't have that team that he built. And I don't care what Jerry says, that trade, the GM from Minnesota, they didn't bring him in about it, but he said it himself that it was Jimmy Johnson that reached out to him about that trade. And one of the things that Jimmy said in that documentary too, he said that Jerry has a tendency to misinterpret the facts. Folks, let me tell you something. There is a lot of that going on, a lot. And that's another thing I don't like about it. I don't like people that misinterpret facts. Because people that misinterpret facts, that's a polite way of saying you're a liar. You know, Jerry can say what he wants. He can say that, you know, maybe somebody had said something about trading Herschel Walker or something like that, but he's not the one that picked up the phone and called the guy from Minnesota, the GM, and said, hey, you want Herschel? And here's the genius of that trade too. And then I'm going to get into a couple things here. They got like 5 players. The only one that they ended up keeping on that roster that year was Isaac Holt because they needed a cornerback, and he was a little above average cornerback who they cut after the 92 season. He played like one down in that San Francisco game, which I don't even know why he was in there on that coverage at the very beginning. I think because it was a nickel package at that first play where the Niners scored, but it was big time holding. But it was Isaac Holt got burned. You know, he ended up in zone coverage with Jerry Rice. And I remember being a young guy and jumping up and going, why is he in there? Because I used to call him toast because he'd get burned. So he was the only one they ended up keeping, but he was, you know, you would only bring him in when you needed like a 5 defensive back set. Now, for those that don't know football, 2 corners, 3 safeties, and there's a guy roving and then 2 taking on the zone, and then they, you know. So I know a lot about football. I know a lot about baseball. I'm real into these kind of things, and I watched that play, and I saw the coverage, you know, and they had this thing on I think it was YouTube, and it showed like aerial views of these different coverages during that game. I analyzed the hell out of that game. And I watched that game, you know, for every play of that game, and it was a masterpiece put on by Aikman, Irvin, you know, Smith, and their coaches, Jimmy Johnson, Norv Turner, Dave Wanstad. Those guys did a hell of a job in that game. And Charles Haley, of course, was the difference maker, and that he was that pressure guy, you know. I remember that 92 season, every play. Haley, so you heard it was his name. Yeah. And Norton, you know, in the middle, linebacker. And those people that say that Emmitt Smith, that he's not in the top 5 even, or he's not number 1, like his stats say, because he had a line. After 96, they didn't have a great line. They didn't. It was okay. It was a little above average. About 99, 2000, it wasn't there. And he kept playing, and he kept rolling up yards. If you watched him play like I did week in and week out, you would see how good that guy was, making people miss, breaking tackles. It was crazy. It was stupid crazy how good he was if you look at his highlights. And he ran more north to south than Barry Sanders. Everybody gives Barry Sanders all this credit, but Barry Sanders did a lot of reverse. He lost a lot of yardage. Mm-hmm. He's trying to go north to south. And it was just, he would hit the hole and he would go, and he would break tackles. You couldn't arm tackle him. And when you look at that 93 season when they went to play the Niners, and Jimmy calls up and says, we're going to win the ball game. We're going to win it. Put it in 3-inch headlines. You know, and then the Niners come to town angry, fired up. They've interviewed those players in different documentaries. Merton Hanks, Eric Davis. They interviewed Bill Romanowski. They were like, we could have played 5-6 quarters and we'd have just gotten worse.
Yeah.
It would have gotten worse. That 94 championship game, especially, it's a different ball game if they called holding on primetime like they should have. It was a different ball game.
Oh, yeah.
That game right there showed, though, that the Cowboys clawed their way back in and damn near came back. And they were one play away from getting back into that game, but Prime, they didn't call it on Dion. I still don't like Dion to this day. I don't give a crap. I don't care if he played for us and what he did. I don't like him. I don't like him. Never have, never will. Just something about him, and then just him.
He's all about himself. He wasn't about like the love.
No,
for his teammates, like,
and he
Emmett
helped keep us from getting the third triple, which we should have got.
Yeah.
We should have made history, and I think we would have got 4 in a row. I don't know beyond that, but I know that that's what would have happened. But yeah, Chris, we're talking about 100 years ago. What we're talking about is a documentary, though, Kramer. And you know, and the part about the Eagles too, how the Eagles bullied them and cheated and did all the bad things that they did to us, and eventually we got them back, you know. But we're talking about the misinterpretation of facts. So, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of people that are misinterpreting facts.
Mhm.
And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, some more than others.
Okay. Well, I just, you know, I don't know. My wife Nellie has some stuff going on with her health, and
There's some bad actors who are unfortunately saying horrible things about it. And there's one in particular who's acting like it's, you know, redemption.
Misinterpreting the facts.
I mean,
Of
exactly.
course.
It's pretty disgusting to see, especially since when the same situation happened to him, none of us relished in his pain, or none of us really sat there and acted like it was a good thing. We prayed for him and hope that things get better, because that's just what you would do as a good Christian. You don't relish in the agony of others.
Yeah, because when you were going blind and you couldn't see out of your eyes, we prayed for you right here on the show and amongst ourselves. But whenever you hear that Nellie has problems with one of her eyes, then it's God's vengeance, right? Avenged sevenfold. That's what that means, right? Yeah, that's real cute. You people are obsessed with this Old Testament vengeance. You're obsessed with Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. You know why? Because that's the God that is like you. You believe you're made in His image. You had your problems because you wouldn't stop drinking Coca-Cola. You're a grown man and you drink Coke every day, and you probably still do because you haven't learned your lesson.
No,
you're probably diabetic. You drink Coca, you drink sugar every day like a little child. I don't respect any man who drinks soda every single day. You're not a man, you're a child. And then you want to attack Nellie as if her health problems is God's vengeance, right? God's vengeance for what? For us throwing curses at you to make you lose your sight? Because you did that yourself. We try to tell you, hey, maybe you shouldn't be drinking 2-3 liters of Coca-Cola every single day. You're in your 60s. You're a grown man. Maybe you should grow up and out of that, because it's going to end badly for you. People who drink Coca-Cola every day, they die of diabetes. So you should probably stop. We told you over and over and over, but you wouldn't listen.
I talked to him many times about that. I had many conversations with him about not drinking the sodas, and you know, I understand you being a fan of Coke. You know, that's I don't really understand that, actually. You know, that's your thing. You do what you do, but it's not something that you should be doing every day. I mean, and I had said that many times, and that fell on deaf ears. And I told him, one of these days, those crows are going to come home to roost. You're going to be not in good health. And what does he do? He turns it around and says that, you know, this is God's vengeance on us. Yeah, I feel a certain way about you at this point. Honestly, though, you know, I don't hate you. I still don't hate you. I'm just glad we're not friends. I'm glad that I figured out who you are. You were definitely, Mr. Nunley, I'm talking to you. You're definitely a misinterpreter of the facts. You came at me full tilt with no proof of anything, because Pastor Larry, your best friend, Larry, lied to you. We call him Lying Larry for a reason. And you guys conspired. And I know you did, because Maddie was a witness to all of it, what you did and said and how this all went down. She's not a liar. I know her very well. And she told the truth about you guys. And she confessed what she said about us. She was very open and honest, and we forgave her and we moved on. And y'all can attack us all you want. We prayed in earnest for you. We never throw curses at people. We don't say that we want cursed things to happen to you or your friends, even though y'all have been horrible people to us, bullies in a way. Y'all beat Nellie into a corner with this because she stood up for me. She stood up for me, and y'all just attacked her like a pack of dogs. When those dogs turned on you, you didn't give them even a thimbleful of what you gave us. Who I was your friend, I was your good friend, and I spent hours trying to convince you that I wasn't these people doing, and you wanted war. You chose to fight me. Your words to me was that we're enemies. That's what you wanted. I think y'all all had a plan for me to get rid of me and to control the narrative, and y'all were going to flush me down the toilet. Folks, they had a plan. I don't believe that he was a part of the original plan, but it was called Operation Downfall, and they were going to get rid of me, Bettina, Hellbent Holler, and a few others.
They had a whole group chat where they planned it out.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad too when you think about the fact that, like, when he was going through health problems, none of us attacked him. None of us did anything. The reason why he was able to forget about PRT and not worry about us anymore is because none of us went after him. But the moment that doesn't happen for us, we left for a whole month. They didn't stop attacking.
Left for 5 weeks, almost 6.
Yeah. But your hillbilly buddies made sure to pray that we die. Multiple times, your toothless hillbilly friends have prayed for our death and misfortune. But the thing is, what God are you praying to? Because my God, the Father of Christ, my Heavenly Father, he doesn't accept. He's not going to accept prayers for me for someone to die. He's not going to accept prayers from me for someone to have bad things happen to them. So what God are you praying to? Who is your Father? What God do you serve? Because you keep saying that you serve the God of the Bible, but I don't know what you serve. I don't know what you people are, but you're very sick. You're mentally ill, and I don't know what's higher or lower, your tooth count or your IQ level. So you people have problems. You attack. Whenever you had your health problems, we prayed for you in earnest, and we meant
others pray for him too.
Yes, and we had others do the same. That's the difference between us and between you. So you just hang your head in shame because you will never be like us. You're just a boy who drinks Coca-Cola. That's all you are. You're a little child, and you can't stop drinking Coke, and I don't respect you, and I never will. How dare you attack Nellie? How freaking dare you? That thing could be the end of her. We still don't know. We don't know. And here you are saying that it's God's vengeance. For what? Huh?
Well, to me, you want Yahweh's vengeance. And let me say something else. These people that wrote the Old Testament that they're so proud of, it's been written and rewritten. It was the Tanakh originally. A lot of those people were just priests. They were the priesthood that wanted power. And they said, God believes this. God wants this. God wants that. Go look up and read your Bible where God actually tells them, I don't desire these things. You do. When he tells the children of Israel, stop doing these things. He doesn't need burnt offerings and all these other things. So this was somebody that is latched on to, this is somebody who's latched on to that Old Testament spewing of hate, where they said, God said this, God said that. Those people were wrong because God didn't say those things, and he corrects them. We had somebody on our show not too long ago that pointed that out.
Giving human characteristics to an almighty being. How shameful of you. You think he cares about?
Yeah, well, he's saying that it's about the band sevenfold. That's not what it is, because I got the screenshots, Barton, of you arguing with people who said something to you about it. And you said it's whatever you want it to be. I have the screenshots, and I'll be posting them. So, like we're not going to ruin the show talking about this crap. But, folks, I saw a lot of people. I just was so hot under the collar and so mad.
You didn't want to.
My wife is going through it. Do I?
Yeah, you didn't want to bring it up.
I didn't. I debated it, but I was just. It made me so angry. You're not going to ruin my show tonight. You're not going to get into my skin any more than you already have. Just nothing worse than the backstabber. your friend, and you did what you did, and now you're going to do that. I reached out to Daryl Denton and tried to get him to mediate so that you could know the truth, and I could show you proof of what your supposed friends did and said. Now I don't care whether you believe it or not. We're done. We will never be. We had a good thing together. We were strong together, and you chose to be the way you are. I have nothing for you. I don't have contempt in my heart. I let it go, and I prayed today. I don't want to. Give me a minute, folks. I'll be right back. All right, folks. I just took a little break there. Said a prayer with my wife. Feel a little better. Just for the record, so everybody knows, this is something that's been going on for a while. The doctors said that this didn't just happen. So no, it's not God's vengeance. Okay, this has been afflicting her for a while, and she's been having headaches and vision problems for a long time. She's a very private person, doesn't talk about her issues a whole lot, and so it eventually just got to the point where she needed to go to the doctor, and an exam of it showed the abnormalities. So it's what it is. But Nellie's a good person. She just messaged me right now and tempered me and told me not to say nothing, just let it go. But you know, I love my wife, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say. So, anyways, that's the live stream, folks. You know, you get what you get. It's here we are. Oh. Anyways, Tonight, as you, what did you name the show? I don't even know what you named it.
I named it Vampire Encounters with an exclamation point.
Well, it's Vampire Encounters.
Mhm.
Vampire Encounters.
Yes, I was very specific. Thank you, Tony.
Well, that's
Thank
not really what it is. I said Vampire Encounter. Well, okay.
Tony's got my back.
Same
I'm
guy,
just saying.
two different encounters. But
Exclamation point.
so we were talking about last time when we were on the live stream about a guy named Arturo and what he went through in this Hell's junkyard.
Mm-hmm.
And so he saw this creature that they called the devil. And these guys that worked there were like, "Hey, have you seen the devil?" And he's like, "Thankfully not," but he did eventually see it. Yeah, there was. Yeah, the guy was a Satanist. The guy that did that. So what ended up happening is this punk, who's satanic, openly satanic, went and whistled at that thing, and it showed up. But it was like it couldn't leave that darkness. But his brother Albert started working there, and I talked to him. And I told everybody, I said, he's got some crazy stuff that happened to him. But Arturo told me that his brother Albert had the eye, as we say in Spanish, ojo. And with that, what he had, what he had going on, he could see things from when they were real young. And when they were children and they lived in this house, he saw some things. And when they were kids, at one point, they went to go live with their abuelita, that's grandmother in Spanish. And they were living down in Eagle Pass. And their neighbor, what they believed their neighbor was a lechuza. Now, coming up in a couple weeks, if you guys be sure and get your name in green, okay? Get your name in green. And you'll be a member, and you'll be able to get members-only content that's going to start in September. And we've already done a bunch of recording to that effect. And then if you join the Patreon, you'll get you're going to get an extra show that's Patreon exclusive. Plus, you'll get your swag box and all your gear. And every 6 months, you'll get another swag box that's going to have all the new, latest, PRT swag, and that's why we call it the swag bag. But it's really a box. We're not just going to ship you a bag full of crushed stuff and hope for the best. We're not this fruit company that I ordered some fruit from.
It's a grocery store bag, just a plastic bag full of crap.
Thank you, Kathy, for that donation. With the word swag written on it. Yeah, here you go. Here's some stickers, some homemade stickers we made ourselves.
Yeah.
They look like sponge doodle on there. So this guy says, he goes, when we were children, we went to go look because their mother had gone into the hospital. She was sick for a long time, and the dad was always up there with her. So they went to go live with their grandmother. They had 2 sisters, and those sisters went to go live with an aunt and uncle, and they stayed going to school there. They were little enough that they were not, wasn't going to affect them. They were like, 4 and 5 or 6, something like that. 4 and 6 years old. So they went down to Eagle Pass, and it luckily it was the middle of the summer, so they didn't have to miss a lot of school or anything. And what's crazy is they had a neighbor, and their grandmother would tell them, she's a lechuza. Don't be out after dark. Don't stare at her. This woman would sit there. She didn't live directly across from him. What Albert told me, and Arturo barely remembers it, he was so little. But he says, I remember, and I would sit there and look out the window at her, and she would stare at me, and she'd make ugly faces at me. He said, and sometimes she would throw rocks at the neighborhood kids. This is how nice of a woman she was. But none of the neighbors would dare say anything to her because they were afraid of her. And she supposedly had made one of the neighbor ladies sick over an argument. Get this, of all things, over a pie. Like, they had made some pies or whatever, and they had taken them to the Pandaria, which is the Mexican bakery, and she was some kind of contest, and so she lost, and so she made that woman sick. And then she openly bragged about it at this little get-together, that they had at this thing for the church, of all things, a Jamaica. You know what a Jamaica is?
Yeah.
So they had this like where they do like a little auction or whatever, and it's for the church, and then they have a little dance, and people bring the god awful accordion and start doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Maddie said they're petty. Yeah, they are. And so this creature, whatever she was, one night when he was out riding his bikes with his cousin, and here's a funny thing, it's a familial name, obviously. His cousin Arturo was 2 years older than him. Mexicans do that. They'll have 2 or 3 cousins all named the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's a weird thing. Like my cousin's name is Paul Anthony, and then Anthony's Mario Anthony, and then my middle name is Paul. So you have the first or middle name, and it'll be the same. You'll have all these same. So Paul Anthony passed away years ago. Really good person that died. So the same thing happened here. He had an older cousin named Arturo, so don't get him confused with his younger brother. But they were riding their bikes. He goes, and it was dark. It had gotten dark. And my grandmother, he said, my grandfather didn't care. He was workaholic till he died. And he said that his grandpa just kind of let them do what they wanted. And he said he didn't really believe in all those superstitions, right? But he said the time that I was living there, my grandfather became a believer. And like I said, there's going to be an episode that we're going to talk about this guy who had his name was Manuel, who got snatched up by one of these things. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about that on the podcast episode. But this bird-like, he says bird-like, swooped down over him, and it was real thin, had these long, skinny legs, and it tried to grab his cousin, knocked his hat off his head, and tore part of his shirt trying to grab him and put a big puncture wound in his shoulder, on his left shoulder. He said to this day, he still got that scar. He's like, but he goes, my cousin was like on his bike, kind of, and he went up on a curb, came back down, and kept his balance with this thing coming down on him. His cousin didn't get a good look at the face. He didn't look up and see the face. He just felt the attack. He goes, I look up. I saw it. He said, and it had a woman's face with where the nose was kind of like a beak. And he said, he gave me a real good description. He said it was real wrinkled, and the eyes, they were like all these wrinkles around the eyes, and they were real bulged out and puffy. And he said that it was like this pink with like these weird hairs all over it. He said it was gross. It was like warts on the face. Gross. He said, especially on one side, there were like all these growths on it, And he said it was an awful, horrible looking creature. And he said, dude, I saw it. I looked up, he goes, and I know what I saw. It was a lechuza. And he said that it was screaming to them, right? Now, you remember I was telling you about that? We recorded about the werewolf that was going to the guy's window, whatever. Mm-hmm. And there was a part I left out of there when it was asking, it was saying, vente, afuera, vente afuera.
I gotta come outside.
So same thing happened to this guy. And like I've heard this before, like multiple times with these lechuzas. He would hear this tapping on the window, and he would like sit there, and he goes, I would freeze. He's like, and it was hot, but we had this AC unit in the window. Mm-hmm. And he's like, it would get real cold in that room. It wasn't a real big room. He said, and down in the valley, this ain't the valley. This is South Texas. Eagle Pass is real hot. It's hot. I've been down there in the summertime once, maybe twice, I think, maybe, yeah. Went to Piedras Negras, and but there was a guy who used to sell silver down there, like a lot of it. Mm-hmm. Mexico produces more silver than any country in the world. Somebody talked about that yesterday on the live stream. We were doing the call-in show. 6,400 tons a year of silver. I believe the next closest country is about 2,000 tons less. So it's quite a disparity. They produce a lot. So I went down there and I bought a bunch of silver, and it's like bars, like bullion. Back when you could go to Mexico and not lose your cabeza. And so I went down there and they have tons of stories and legends down there. I mean, they were telling me all kinds of tales when I go down there. And like I said, I only went down there to Piedras Negras, and it was only to buy silver from that guy. They called him Macho. That was his name. And he was a little skinny guy. He always wore like these tank tops. Mm-hmm. And he'd come out. He was an old guy. He'd flex. He like how they say a big guy. They call him tiny. Yeah. He was a little scrawny guy with no muscles. The old guy, abuelo, And he'd come out and he'd be like, "Hey," they'd be like, "Hey, macho man." He'd wear the bandana and everything. And he'd come out there. He goes, I used to be able to lift a car. I was so strong. And they'd be like, "I mentiras way," you old guy, you can't do nothing, viejo, whatever. And he would laugh, and he would say, "Nah, I don't believe these chismosos. They're just jealous. He's celoso, jealous. I was so strong, So he called him macho. He called him it's a macho man. Like he was like Randy Savage. He came out with the glasses. Yeah, he was a big wrestler. Mexico, they love wrestling.
Yeah,
they love it. They
do
love
it better
it.
over there. It's more entertaining.
Oh yeah, it's entertaining for sure. That's another thing I did. They took me to the wrestling matches just south of Pedro's Negros. They had a big arena there, and I got to see the luchadores. And so this guy was pretty cool, man. But he had a connection, and I would buy a lot of silver, and so I'd go down there. And so I thought, there's got to be a way to buy it that's cheaper than just getting it through eBay or a dealer here in America, and the border was real loose at that time right there. And so I could just go and get it and not get hassled. And, so long ago. And so I got to know the guy pretty good, and he had a real connection, and it was real, it wasn't no bullcrap. And so being a wrestling fan, whatever, we got to talk. I'm not a big wrestling fan, but I liked Macho Man, And I remember him telling me stories, and he said that there was a bruja who had put a curse on him. He got real sick, almost died at one point. And he said, that these witches, they like to, like if they're mad at somebody, this is what this guy told me, right? And he told me, he says, what they do is they'll attack you because they want somebody else to look like that they're doing it. And so then they start fights, and other people do their dirty work for them, and they're real good at that.
Mm-hmm.
So he had almost gotten killed by his neighbor because they were believing that him and his daughter were doing something they weren't. So they were going to this other witch and putting curses and all this stuff. That's how it works. And it still happens to this day. And I'm telling you, that's what people do. And they always manage to get away and trick, whatever. But that's why you got to plead the blood of Christ. And God will reveal things to you. But some people, they're not interested in the truth. They're just interested in hate and vengeance and whatever. But I've been hearing about that for a long time. So when Albert was telling me this, a while back about the bruja down there with him getting attacked, by the lechuza, which I can't promise you that if you don't go out at night that it won't happen. But 99% of what I've heard, these things, you'll see them in the daytime, but they won't attack you. They attack in the darkness.
Yeah.
So you can catch glimpses of these things in their spirit form. If you take pictures like of trees where you feel like an energy or something, just snap a photo. I'm telling you, folks, snap a photo of it might just look like trees blowing in the fall or something. Take a picture, and you might see something. And I'm telling you, these lechuzas, they're in big time down in South Texas. Every town has 5 or 6 of them. I'm not even joking. And they fight each other. They're always fighting each other. They're petty. They're evil. Because evil makes you petty. It's very disloyal. And they see disloyalty everywhere. And it's not there. It's just them being evil. And evil people don't believe in loyalty. So this creature attacks them. And he says that at night he would hear that, like, vente afuera. He would hear it, like, and it would tell him to come outside. He goes, then I'd see the air conditioning unit move. Like it would start to move, like somebody was there messing with it. And then he'd run and tell his grandpa. And he goes, my grandpa, he goes, being a Mexican family, the grandpa, they had children when they were in their teens, late teens. He goes, and then my mom had us in her late teens. My grandpa wasn't real old. He was like in the early 50s or something like that. He wasn't no weak guy, And he said he'd run in there with the baseball bat and he'd scream and yell at it. And he'd go, okay, there you go. It's gone. And he'd put the bat down and stand there like he had done something, and him and his brother would be like, mira, aquí, right here, look. And then the air conditioned unit would still be moving. And he'd turn around and he'd be like, and he said one time he got so turned around that his bolito started hitting the air conditioning unit. And he goes, and he broke it, So then my grandma comes in there and she's furious. She's like, you pendejo, you broke the air conditioned unit and it's all messed up. And look, why did you hit the air conditioned unit, And then he's like, I don't know. I saw something. And so then she went out there and she started throwing holy water, and she was telling it to get on, muévate, and just going off on it, in the name of Jesus, Jesus Cristo, and so she was out there, screaming and, and saying the rosary, the prayer of 12 truths, and so Grandpa goes out there and kind of entertains it, and he's kind of shaken up at this point. Then he looks up because they had some company. His grandfather's cousin was there, right? And he drinks. He's like, look, up in the tree, you know? And they look up in the tree and they see this thing, like kind of like it's on a tree branch. He goes, us kids, everybody, we were all out there. He said, my cousins, they were already like grown. They were like 18, 19 years old. And they could see this thing, like the tree branch was about to break. It was a big, heavy tree branch. He goes, and there was this big creature. I said, what did it look like? He said, like the thing that came down on us. I said, but what did that exactly look like? And he said, had brown feathers, these real skinny legs, the lower legs. They looked like a chicken's legs, like feet. But then it kind of went up, like you could see where the calves would have been of a person, you know, you could see the feathers. And then there was like this hair on it, and there was this weird pink face and these weird wings. And he goes, but there were arms too. It was just weird looking, and it just went straight up over them. And he said, as soon as this, I'm going to get my gun, you know, el cuerta, you know, which is gun. And as soon as he said that, that thing just took off. And so he said, yeah, that made my grandfather a believer. He goes, my grandpa was up for 2 or 3 days, man. And he kept drinking and trying to hide it from his wife. He was in there, you know, taking sips, you know, and he goes, I just remember him going in there, you know, and he had a bottle of tequila and he was taking little sips of it and telling his wife, no, I'm not drinking. And then telling them, you know, they're like, ay, mentiras, you know, Grandpa, you're drinking. And he's like, don't tell your mama. So eventually he started going to church, and then they ended up taking like this little pilgrimage to San Juan, which is a very popular mission. We used to have to go down there. And if you're Latino and you're within 1,000 miles, you'll go to San Juan. It just happens. And I never liked it, never believed in it, but I would get told stories by my great aunt, my tia Jova. And I tell you, right, she scared the crap out of me with the manos paludos and all that crap. By the time I got there, I was lighting candles. I was praying, asking the priest, so what can I do to avoid the hairy hand that comes through the window? Like, I had a bunch of questions for the priest. Literally, I wrote it down on a piece of spiral paper, and I was like, I need to avoid these things: the chupacabra, the lechuza, La Llorona. And
say this many Hail Marys. And
well, I had this priest, and he sat down and he was like, son, these things are not real. These are spirits. You know, they're not real in the flesh. Little did he know, yes, they are. And it would be confirmed to me years later. I remember him telling me that I was like 8 years old. I'll never forget. I was like in 4th grade, and I took that list because I had a teacher. All right. And Mrs. Yates, I'll never forget, she was my reading teacher. She said, well, if you ever need to ask a lot of questions to somebody, you write it down on a piece of paper on a list. And I had horrible handwriting already, but not like it is now because all my fingers have been tore up. But she said, write it down and make a list of it and take it to whoever you're going to. And I said, well, I got to go talk to a priest. Mrs. Yates was a white lady, but she was Catholic. And she only flaw for her was that she was like my stepmom's best friend. But I didn't have that stepmom at the time. She was a teacher there, but she wasn't my teacher. She was a 3rd grade teacher. So I missed her. And I'm joking. I shouldn't talk like that. I'm just being jokey, whatever. But she said, she's like, you know, if you make a list, I said, well, I'm going to talk to a priest this weekend down in San Juan. She goes, oh, the mission. Yeah. And I said, yeah. She's like, yeah, it's a lot of people. It's like a pilgrimage, you know. I go there once a year. I hate it. And we always went like in April. And I said, but I'm going to go and I need to ask this priest a lot of questions. She said, well, what kind of questions are you going to ask? You know, it's toward the end of class and we're just sitting there. I always finished before everybody else anyway. And she says, what are you going to ask it? I said, well, I need to ask it how I protect myself from certain things. She's like, oh, well, what are you afraid of? And I said, well, I'm afraid of the lechuza. She's like, oh, she kind of knew what it was. She's like, he's living in Texas, you know. She's like, the bird lady. I said, yeah. And then I need to know about the La Llorona. I need to protect myself from the chupacabra, the hombre lobo. And then I need to, you know, I had all these lists of things, phantasmos and the cocoy that lives in my aunt's closet. And she was just like, she goes, okay, make a list, you know. And so I did, you know, all these creatures that I was terrified of. So I get down there and I ask the priest, I said, he just kind of folds his hands and he's just real calm. He says, son, this isn't happening, you know.
It's the same in my house. My mom would tell me all kinds of superstitions, and I remember getting so fed up with it. I was like, if it gets me, it gets me. How am I supposed to remember all this? Right? I can't whistle in the woods. I can't go skipping at night. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Can't dance in the mirror, or the ghost demon of the mirror will get me.
What were the names of the monsters for y'all?
I don't remember the names as much. I just know because I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure there are like.
Oh, hang on. Wait. They're saying the mic's off. Why is the mic on? Your mic's on. Did you unplug it? You
Oh, yeah, I got unplugged.
There you go. Oh, hang on. It's not supposed to do that.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, dude. Hang on. Technical difficulties. Hang on. Tony broke his microphone.
What?
God dang it. Hang on.
He broke it?
Just this thing came up.
Oh, sorry. It broke itself, according to Tony.
I was talking about ghosts and it broke. That's all it is. Is that better?
All right, do a mic check. Can y'all hear Tony now?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. All right.
Jeez.
Big brother fix it for you. Don't worry.
Thanks, Papa.
Okay.
Apparently, you can't talk about ghosts in a
Joel
mic.
said, let's blame the lechusa.
That's another superstition. You didn't know? You can't talk in a ghost about
Yeah, but
mic.
like grown up as a Vietnamese kid, for us Mexicans, it's the cucuy, the lechusa, and llorona.
I don't
But
remember.
what is
chupacabra.
it called for y'all? Like,
my mom would
what
never
is-
tell me like the names of them, but it would be more like just the superstitions. Be like, you can't do this, this, or this. But like,
Yeah, it'll conjure it up, draw its
it'll
attention.
draw something, but I don't remember what she would call it. I'm sure that it has a name, but for her,
Let me get to this here because this story is so. I had to go fix my hair a little bit. I know it doesn't look much better, but it is what it is. You know, my hair's kind of thicker in certain spots. So here's what ended up happening. He lives down there for like a few more months. His mother starts to get better, and they go to visit his mother. And then his grandmother says, "Well, this is goodbye, mijo. I'm gonna see you in a few months." He had gotten so used to living down there that he liked living down there, but he was terrified of that lechusa. And that old lady, when we were getting in the car, she walks over to the car. That day, it's like he didn't even know that they were leaving to go back to he thought they were going to go visit his mother. This old lady who was this lechusa, she comes up to him and she stands there at the glass and she's glaring at him with these ugly, mean eyes. And he looks up at her and she's giving him the ojo, you know. And she says, "I'm going to get you." She's like, "I'm going to get you." She's like, "You revealed me." And turns around and walks. She said it in Spanish, you know, turns around and walks off. And because and I said, what did you do besides, you know, she was harassed? He goes, "Oh, I had a big mouth. I told everybody in the neighborhood who it was." And he goes, "I literally like went door to door with a picture that I had drawn. And I was at the library," he goes, "and I made copies of it. And I gave it to everybody in the neighborhood and put her address on there."
You can pull the mic away a little bit if you want to.
He goes, and I called her a bruja, you know, brujita, you know, and I said, "This is who she is."
Passed out flyers about her.
He did. He goes, "I'd literally," and so I thought that was funny. I said, "No wonder now everybody knows, because the thing that they like to do is stay hidden so they can commit all their machinations." We know people like that online that do that.
Yeah.
They make fake accounts and they like to stay hidden and pretend like they're not doing what they're doing.
The nature of evil.
The nature of evil is to be hidden, right? That's what Sauron does in Lord of the Rings. He's hidden, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy, but that's what he did. And I started laughing. I said, "Well, you really stepped in it, you know, if you did that." I said, "But I applaud your efforts, you know, Albert, because that's, you know." So Alberto comes back to the up north up here, you know, to Central Texas. He said my mother had gotten really ill and she was getting better, you know, and so a long time goes by, like several years, you know, goes by. He's like, and I'm older, you know, he goes, and I guess I was about 19 years old. He's like, and I remember sitting there in my first apartment I had all to myself, and it was my first job, and it was a security job, like where it was a first, you know, not non-fast food job, he said. And I was ready to go, man. He goes, I'd gotten commissioned, and I was like, that's level 3. That's when you have a gun, you know. And he's like, I was ready to go, you know. I was ready, and I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. The next day, I was going to work a swing shift. It was at this bank building downtown. That's here in Austin, by the way. He was living here in Austin. His family, they didn't live. He did. He moved to Austin. He had a roommate, and his roommate Felix was like, yeah, we're going to be living in Austin. He's like, we thought we were bad, boy. We were late 90s, you know. He goes, we would go downtown, and funny enough, like he claims that he used to come into my bar every now and then, and he remembered me when we started talking. He goes, I remember you were a big old dude, and even claimed he saw me fight one time down there, you know. And he's like, I would not mess with you. He goes, but I never spoke to you. He goes, I just remember you, big, tall, you know, like you were the law down there, you know, and nobody messed with you. And I said, no, yeah, a lot of people knew me. I didn't know them. But he said that his first job is security, and then he worked for about 2 months. He goes, and it was just boring. He goes, it was just a boring. I know where he was working at too. And he said it was just a boring post. And he goes, in the company he worked for, I knew who they were. They were the ones that took over our old contracts from that company I used to work with. And he said that there were some haunted places that they would tell him about. He tried to avoid them because he would see things. And in that building, he said, I only heard something twice. I never saw anything. And like I said, I know where he's talking about. It's close to the Capitol. It's further, not close, but it's further down on the for Congress. And he said that he heard a couple of times, he thought he heard something call his name. Now, you remember when Tony Duran was on the show on that Hellhounds of Taylor, Texas.
Yeah.
That's an encounter that me and Tony Duran, Jason, my friend Jason, and Oscar had in front of my friend Heather's house. He was talking about how that building right there, and Tony could confirm it, that you walk around that building, you'd hear your name called. I was in that building a couple times, you know, when I was doing patrol to go and check. I had to go and do a DTEX. For that patrol, I had to hit 22 buildings. Can you believe that? And I had to get out and do it, you know, and I had 2 hours to hit 22 buildings. And I had to do it all, you know, I had to do it like, I think 4 times a night. It was a lot of work. So, but you just walk in, you know, but you have this big old thing of keys, like a bunch of keys.
Yeah.
You know? So you got to use them to get in, and you just do the DTEX and you get out. And sometimes the guard's there, sometimes he's up in the building. I didn't care, whatever. And Tony told me, so, you know, do this on the last hit. You come up, you know, and when you're done with your patrol, you probably have about a half hour or whatever. We'll hang out, talk. Old friend of mine, you know, and I got a few of my friends hired at that job. And he said, you know, there was something in that building that would say your name. So I walked through the building with him. Nothing happened. I said, well, thank goodness it didn't happen. I'm not interested in, I've already had my experiences at that other building. I was good. But this guy worked there, and he said it happened to him. And I said, yeah, well, Tony told me, Tony Duran told me that happened to him. So anyway, shout out to Tony. He's been on the show. Y'all probably remember him. But that building, I remember, though, there was another person that used to work there, this guy Slade, that I knew for years. And I don't know whatever happened to Slade, but Slade said that one time he was there and he saw this thing crouched down in a corner with red eyes. And he just turned out of the room and walked out. He was like, I am not, and you're up in them buildings at night. If you could scream, some could chew you up, eat you. Nobody's going to find you till the next day. And nobody can get in the building either. Nobody can get in there. So yeah, you're pretty much at the mercy, you know, and I know it's not that way now, but the fire department, you had to have security in those buildings so you could let the fire department in even. You know, now they all have like this master key. They can,
Yeah.
But I'm not joking, folks. It was like, that was one of the requirements in case the key didn't work. And a lot of times they didn't. The guard would be, you know, if you had a guard, you'd let them in, they wouldn't give you a big fine. But if you didn't, you could be in big trouble. And so anyways, that was the nature of the beast back then. This building that he was at, though, he said that he ended up getting transferred to another building. It was more boring than that. I never worked at that building. It's not even called that anymore. It's called Westfield back then. Very boring place. He said it was just a 4-level building. You just sat there at the front. And he would fall asleep and he'd be in trouble on camera falling asleep. There's nothing to do there. He said they'd have a basket of fruit. He goes, I'd eat all of it by the end of the night. And I was not a real big guy but I would just eat fruit all night and then have to use the bathroom. There's nothing going on. So he got another job doing something else, you know, and so he just said I couldn't deal with it. It was too boring. Years later, though, he came back to security because of his brother, and they were living in San Antonio. And that's where his family was living, was up in down San Antonio, but he had moved to Austin. He lived here for a while, back in the Wild West days of the 90s. And it was downtown. Downtown was a Wild West. Well, he said he loved going downtown on 6th Street in the 90s, but there was some bloodbaths down there, some fights. Back when people could actually fight without shooting each other. And the shootings happen every now and then, not like it did, not like now, where it's like every weekend. But yeah, so what ended up happening, he said, I got a job working with this girl. He goes, and she talked me into helping her, like he bodyguarded her while she would go in and privately dance for guys, right, at these parties, like bachelor parties, and he would, watch. Most of the time he would be there with her, and it was his girlfriend's best friend, and so him and his girlfriend would go with her. He said, and my girlfriend was a bodybuilder. She's a big, strong, tough girl. She was almost 5'9". He said, so we would kind of watch out for her. She was real pretty. He goes, and she would dance around, and we would go and we would watch and make sure. He said, and I got into it with this guy one time down by the campus, down here in Austin. So he started bodyguarding these, then he started bodyguarding these other strippers too, right? And he said it was an okay job, but it was, you deal with some really scuzzy people, right? Because these guys are just, and the women are, too. But he said that he was, this girl was dancing around on this guy, and this guy, he goes, I literally saw his face change. He goes, because if there was something around that was weird like that, I could see it. I'd see it. He's like, and I saw his face change. He goes, and his jaw lowered. He said, and I saw his eyes kind of bulge out, and they looked yellow. And I'm thinking, what in the hell am I looking at? He said the guy looked like a reptile, like a lizard, And so he said that it was weird. It was like at that point he knew that there was something, that maybe he shouldn't be doing this. And so his mother, who was very spiritually in tune too, just like his grandmother was, she called him and said, Mijo, you need to, whatever job that is you're doing, I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing something, and you need to quit. You need to stop doing it. And so, yeah, Dick Richards says it's a bad industry. Yeah. Tell me something I don't know, Richards. Come on now. Come on, Richards.
What's the time,
Come on, Richards. God, go to
Thanks
bed.
for that relevant information.
Go to bed, Hannibal. Hannibal Lecter. So, but this. He goes, that was the first weird thing that happened. And there was another time, he goes, where there was a guy that got real pushy. He goes, and I had to fight this guy because he was drunk, and even his friends were grabbing him, trying to get him to chill out because he was on top of this girl with his other thing out, trying to do, like he was trying to get on her, and the girl was like, get off of me. And then he's like, he wasn't a huge guy. He goes, but he was possessed or something. Because he's like, there were like 5-6 guys trying to get him. He goes, and then he turns and he cold cocks one of his friends and then hits me so hard, I think I had an out of body experience. He's like, and I'm pretty sure he knocked me out, and I was out for a second, but still on my feet. And then I was up against the wall and I kind of snapped too. He's like, and pretty sure he gave me a concussion, but then I wrestled with this young man. He goes, and I ended up throwing him through a window. And then the guy got up and kind of got down on all fours. He didn't change into anything, but he was on all fours, and he ran down the sidewalk and out into the parking lot and into the woods like a dog. And he said, this is, was just crazy. He goes, but it was the mixture of the booze, the drugs, and just the evilness of the whole thing. Just being evil is what it is. It's a bad thing. He said, man, I couldn't take it no more. I was like, I couldn't do this, job, whatever. He said, but then I started working with this one girl, and he said they called her Tabitha. She was evil. He goes, I had no idea, but that wasn't her real name. That was her little stage name, right? And he said that she had these pentagrams on either one of her wrists. And she told him, she says, I'm a witch, and I belong to a coven, and told him some really fantastical stuff. Told him here in Austin, right? Told him that there were 6 of them, of these women, and that they were all over 100 years old. Jeez. Right? Told Albert that, right? And Albert's like, oh, okay. Like, okay. So he goes, so you're a drug addict liar. Okay, cool. I'm Albert. I'm 30 years old. I
mean, that is equally possible too.
I'm into rollerblading and frozen yogurt and this job, So am I hired or what? So he goes, this woman would make a lot of money. He said the first time he went in there with her, and this could be its own episode, just some of the stuff he was telling me, that they would go in there to these places, and she would dance around for these men. And he goes, they would just be like, with their mouth open, hypnotized. Her body was like perfect. She had like this her skin was so white. He said, except for like her face, neck, and like the hands, where the sun would touch, she always wore these long sleeves because of the tattoos. She had these crazy tattoos. And he said it was nuts. And her skin was white like a piece of paper. But there was all this weird writing on there that he didn't know what it was. He said it looked like some kind of maybe Arabic, a Hebrew, all mixed together. It was weird Greek. And he was pretty sure it was like incantations that were written on her body. And he said that she would dance around and these men would just be mesmerized and their eyes would just be popping out of their head like, And he said that after a couple of the weird things he had seen, like that guy morph and then the dude jump and crawl, whatever, he said, man, a couple of years of this crap and it didn't happen all the time, but, and he said that these guys, she'd leave with a couple grand. And he said the year was 1999.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, a couple grand a night. And he said he got addicted to the money and she would give him like $500. Jeez. She go, I'll give you, because she goes, money is nothing to me. She goes, I go in there for 2 hours, I make $2 grand. And these guys would just be, they would be leaving to the ATM. She said that they did it in a nightclub one time, after hours. Mm-hmm. She came in there and started dancing around like a witch. She was dressed like a witch. It was Halloween. He said, and she walked out with 5 G's. Jeez. So from 2:30 in the morning when they closed the bar, I don't know where it was. It was Brado's, where I know that club. It was called Voodoo Room now, but it was right there off of 5th Street. I remember I got into a big old brawl there, and so she goes in there and she dances around for these frat boys. She's like, they were leaving to go to the ATM to get money, to give her money. Everything all right? Hang on one second. So he said that they were leaving to give her money. It was like these people were determined, to go broke, And he said that whatever she got, she'd give me like a quarter of it. He goes, so I'd make this big old.
Make a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, he made a lot of money, doing that. I mean, it was crazy money, And he said she'd go in there and make, he'd make $1,200 on one of these, where she'd go into the club at night, And through Halloween, time, she seemed like she made a lot of money around that time. And so it wasn't right off the crack of the bat, but he started to figure out like, hey, this woman's not lying. She really does. She's bewitching these people. So she introduced him to a friend of hers and they hit it off. And next thing you know, they kind of started dating. And he said one day we were eating, and I know this place, it's called Baby Acapulco's, a restaurant, one of the Baby Acapulco's there off of Barton Springs, not there no more. And he said that, told him, he's like, he asked, he said, are you really a witch? And she says, you shouldn't ask questions you're not willing to hear the answer to. And he says, well, I want to hear the answer. She goes, no, you don't. But he says, well, is it true what she's saying? Tabitha, not her real name, but is that true? And he said, yeah. She said, yeah, this is true. We are literally, witches. He said, are y'all over 100 years old? She goes, no, not everybody. She goes, and I don't know. I've only been with these people for about 10 years, so I don't know all their backstories. But the rumor is that a couple of these women are very old. And we are able to stay looking young. He said that she admitted to him that they would drink blood. And they would do these blood rituals. And sometimes it involved animals, but sometimes it involved people. According to her, they didn't, they were willing participants. They didn't kill, and it was a house out in the hill country where they would go and they would do these rituals out in the middle of nowhere. And supposedly they were good friends with this, I'm not going to say his name, but my friend Roger used to know this guy, and he was, his house got raided. He was in a heavy metal band, let's put it that way. And it was out in the country. And out in West Central Texas, and I don't want to say too much to give away who he is, but it was kind of an industrial type music. Let's put it that way. He had a place out there, and he got raided, and there was all kinds of satanic crap in there. And my friend wasn't his friend. He just did like some videography work for him. And he told me, he said, that guy's messed up. Like he's big into meth and Satan, So my friend, at the behest of his wife, told him to stop working for that guy. And the guy's pretty popular. He's a pretty famous guy. And so anyway, what ends up happening, he said these witches or whatever, they were into vampirism. And one of them told him that she knew the woman that had messed with him as a child. He said, you're marked. And he's like, what do you mean? He goes, and they were getting set up at a strip club and where they were all going to perform that night at a strip club. He said that night they made like 10 grand. It was unbelievable. And so, hold on one second. I got work call. Okay. That's a mistaken call there. So this is what happened. He said they go in there and they perform. He's like, and they make like 10 grand at this strip club. He said afterwards, this woman comes up to him. He said they were all just 10s, perfect 10s. It's not natural, not normal. And she says, you have been marked. You have something on you. Do you ever see shadows around you? And she's like sitting in his lap, touching his face, and he's over there like mesmerized, And he looks over at the girl that he's dating and she's just smiling, which ain't normal. You know how women are. They'll claw your eyes out. You ain't supposed to look at other women. You're supposed to die before you do that. Like if I'm with my wife and there's a hot girl walks by, I just go like this and I fall over dead. I just do that. It's my defense mechanism. And then later on I reconstitute,
I go through what the Nazis go through in Indiana Jones when they found
just melt.
Yeah.
Your face, you just melt.
I would just pretend I'm asleep. Like she looks over at me.
Even though you're driving, you just run right into a mirror.
What do you mean there was a pretty girl? Honey, I had no idea. I was asleep. You can tell I was asleep. My mouth was open.
I just tell the truth. I don't even know they exist.
Yeah.
I'm like, pretty girls exist beyond you?
Well, I wouldn't know.
I was like, see, now if I look, it's because you told me about these other pretty girls. I didn't know they existed. Once I got with you, all other women just looked like street lamps. I didn't even like inanimate objects. I don't even.
Oh, I thought that was a dude. My bad.
Sauce man says sunglasses work. Not if you're me. She's like looking at the sunglasses like.
I don't know how willing participants can really be possible when you have the power to memorize people or mesmerize them.
Mesmerize. Well, there's a lot of things that involve, but anyway, this woman was staring at him and he goes, this is weird. And she says, there's something on you. And she says, I know somebody's marked you. She says, I'm going to call you tomorrow and we'll help you out. So the next day they go and they eat at this restaurant, right? And I know there's a Mexican place. It used to be right there on 6th Street. And they went there. My brother used to work right next door to it at this other place. And so they meet there. And she tells him, she says, you have a bruja that you ran afoul of when you were young. She cursed you and you're still marked. She's like, that's a target, And he says, well, I'm a Christian. And they all kind of just look at him with this angry look on their face, kind of like, yeah, well, that's probably why it's dormant, but it's not going to help you. Eventually somebody's going to take you out. They're going to do this or that. They started telling him all this crap. He said it was like they were lying at that point. He said, I knew they were lying. He goes, this isn't the case. He goes, I'm protected, Mm-hmm. He said, I'm not going to fall into this crap, where they. So at that point, he started to kind of pull away from that girl. And then eventually, even though the money was really good, he told her, he said, I don't want to be a part of this thing you're doing and this cultic, activity, whatever. They invited him to this orgy style party that they had out in the Hill country. He didn't go. And so this girl started blowing up his phone saying, what, you don't want to be with me anymore and whatever. And he's like, well, this is a weird thing. It's like an open relationship. I don't really want to be a part of this, And so right after that, he said, like the next night, he said, I'm in my apartment. It's on the 2nd floor. He's like, and I hear this something rubbing like up against the glass. Like you hear something bumping, kind of sliding, like if you were to take your hand and rub on a screen, Mm-hmm. And he says, I can hear it. It's like something there. He's like, and I'm freaking out. And I look, and by the light of the street light, I can see like an image of something. He says, and so I'm laying there. He goes, and why I said this, I have no idea, but I welcomed this thing in. I said, what's up? He said, next thing you know, there's this thing at the foot of my bed. He goes, and it was bluish green. He said it had these enormous ears that kind of went up and kind of folded down. He said, and this thing opened its mouth. He goes, and it looked kind of rat-like in the face a little bit, but it was a bluish green color. He said, and it was all black. Like there was all this, like it was dressed in black, like there was this black suit on it. And it kind of had the appearance like it had boobs, kind of like a woman, but it was bald and gross looking. And he said, never had been, afflicted like this in any way, but when I was a child, I had seen a lot of things, but I had never seen anything like this, And he said that it was so horrible. He said, when I was a child, I got in the habit without being told or taught to anybody. I just said, I renounce you. He would say, I renounce you in Christ's name. And he said that he had begun to say that as a child when he was a little kid, when he first dealt with the lechuza. He says, I renounce you in the name of Christ. He goes, and I wake up and it's daytime. He said, but my front door was open. It was weird. He goes, and I walk out there and there's like leaves and stuff, because it was fall. And he said they were all over the living room, whatever. And I told him, I said, I had an experience similar to that. And if you go back and you watch the episode where we talk about the haunted tower, that happened to me when there was like this entity or something that came in the house, and there was these birds, blackbirds. But he said that he goes, I had never been afflicted like this, And I thought, could it have just been a dream? Maybe it was. He goes, it felt dreamlike after I woke up. But as the week went on, he said that it became more apparent that this wasn't a dream. This was something that really happened. And he didn't know, whether he was coming or going, from day to day. And this girl kept calling, And so eventually he just, kind of put it out of his mind. And one day he goes, I was eating dinner out by the lake. I'm not going to say the name of the place because I don't know if it matters. But anyways, we've been out there. It's out there off of, let's put it this way. It's by the dam.
Okay, yeah. I know.
So he's out there and he's eating dinner, and he said he's looking out over the lake and he's eating. And he said, dude, there was this weird, like he thought he was having like hallucinations, like he was going crazy. He said there was this giant red catfish that came up to the spot where he was eating. It was just him by himself because he was expecting his brother to come and his friend. And he goes, and I was there by myself and I was just eating the chips, and this fish comes up and it comes up out of the water, and catfish, they're not going to lift their head up out and beg.
Yeah.
And he goes, it started kind of going like that with its mouth. He goes, I look down and this catfish tells him, it says, you need God. And it goes back down to the water. And he was like, what? And he goes, dude, I just started praying. He's like, for months, I thought maybe I was losing my mind and that was just some kind of weird, he goes, back then I would smoke pot sometimes. Yeah. He's like, and I hadn't smoked in like 2 days. So I knew that couldn't have been what it was. And he goes, and I was trying to get off of it and stop drinking and everything, change my life, working out all the time. And I was in between jobs at that point, but I'd made a lot of money, so I was just kind of drifting. And he said that thing telling me that. He goes, and then that night I went home. I didn't tell my brother or my friend about it. They think I was crazy. He said, so I'll go home and I'm praying. He goes, and it was like that fish was in my dream. He said, in this dream, he said he fell asleep. He prayed so long, he fell asleep. He goes, and this man was walking across the water. And he said, I was watching it come across the water. And his arms were out like this. He said he was this tawny skinned guy, that was the words he used. And I said, do you know what that means? It's kind of beige, And he said, well, it's more brown. He's kind of a, lighter skinned brown, He said, but I knew it was Christ. Like he was coming, onto the water. And he goes, once he got to the shore, because I wanted to go out there to meet him, but I couldn't. And he goes, and he had this fish in his hand, and the fish turned and looked at him. And the fish said, God is love. And he said, then he had that image of that fish, the fish that Christians put on their vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Jesus says, listen, the fish tells you the truth. And he said, and he releases it. He says, God's creature, and he lets it go, and it goes out into the water. Kind of like a confirmation that what he saw physically from that fish was a real thing. He said, so I wake up and he goes, I feel so much peace. I feel at peace. He said, now, thank you, Jesus. I'm free. There's this, big weight lifted off of me. I don't feel anything, And he said, my feet were wet. He's like, they had moisture and there was like sand on them. He goes, and I get up and I'm like, he's like thinking, was I on the beach for real? You know, I'm in here in Austin, you know, in South Austin.
Yeah.
I wasn't on the beach. You know, there's no beach.
Yeah, ain't no
like
sand
that.
here.
No. Well, Valente claims they have a beach, but it's just a
Oh,
mud pit.
God, yeah.
But you know, so and no offense to the people at Valente, okay, don't start getting on me. I know who you are, okay. But anyway, you know, he says that I saw Jesus and this beautiful red fish, this catfish. He goes, and I'd never seen a red catfish like that. Never seen one before in my life. It's kind of an orangey red looking thing, you know. And so he says, at that point, I felt like this love and this peace in my heart. And I felt like, you know, like a peace for all people, like love, you know. He said, and then after that, the girl, that witch, she stopped calling and everything. He said, and then there was nothing for like maybe 5 or 6 years. He said, I moved back to San Antonio. He's like, and I meet this girl from California, and then we hit it off and we get married. And then she goes, your brother has a job with this company. He needs help, blah, blah, blah. So one thing leads to another. He ends up working, you know, with his brother off and on for years. And then when he gets that job at that rec yard, he tells him, he says, I can't work that every day. I'm taking this guy's place. It's good money, but the place is haunted. And he goes, and so Arturo tells him, he says, you know, all the things I've seen there, you would go crazy there because, you know, it's, you can see those kind of things and you're more adept at it than I am. But he wants to work. And so he says, I'll just pray up, you know. So Albert, luckily for him, not luckily, there's no luck, but by the grace of God, he works with this woman who, her name is Mary, and she's Mary, right? She's very, very Christian, very, very devout. And he said the first day I met her, she's wearing this shirt that says, I love Jesus, you know, and then a necklace, there's the little fish, the symbol, right? And she's got her wedding ring, so she's married, and he's married, and there ain't no kind of, you know. And he said it was a good fit. We got along real well. And she told him, she said, there's a lot of evil in this place. There's been a lot of bad things here. And so about 2 weeks into this, nothing happens. Everything's fine. He feels this dark energy, though, toward that end of the darkness, they called it, you know, at the tow yard. And he tells her, finally they started talking about stuff, you know, and she was real into sports, and they were about the Spurs, you know, and Spurs were winning back then, you know. And so they just kind of kept it superficial. And then she finally starts talking about her faith. He said, you know, worked with her a couple days a week for about 2 weeks, about the third or fourth day, I think. He goes, it was when I started talking to her. She said, I answered an ad in the paper. And she said, I'd never felt drawn to a job. She's like, and when they started telling me about all the darkness and evil here, I just felt more drawn to it. Not because of the darkness and evil, but because that's where God wanted me to be. Mm-hmm. And so she says, I have gone out into that yard, you know, and I have prayed for those spirits in the darkness there to be released. And he says, yeah, how did that work? And she says, well, there's some of them that are trapped there. There's an evil entity there. And she says, they call it the devil. He goes, yeah, my brother has seen it. And she says, but that's not the true entity. There is something else that dwells in the back of that, and he is the boss, you know. He's like the overlord of that, you know, and he has these souls there. And she's like, and it's not just this tow yard. She's like, it's this whole area. Now, we have a friend of ours that has been on the show who actually was kind of close to that area, who did an investigation. And actually, weirdly enough, he reached out to me just about a week ago. He was also at my conference, and he saw this giant wolf-like creature when he was investigating, and it was probably not even a mile away from there, or maybe, about a mile and a half. So funny that he reached out to me. I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can find out anything else that's going on, because he had messaged me. This is weird, because that confirms that, like he was saying, that area he believes is evil, and there's some kind of darkness there. You remember, you know, that witch told him that there was this lechusa that had marked him when he was a child. Yeah. Right? So he goes into that dark area, and he sees this shadow kind of following him, kind of like paralleling him. He tells it, he goes, I renounce you in the name of the Most High, you know, and his son, Jesus Christ. He has this whole thing he does now. And he just takes his cross, and he keeps walking, and he ignores it. And he kind of does like what Vincent did. When he gets toward the back of this thing, he hears this, like something is jumping on these cars. And he said he knew what it was automatically. He says, and he looks, and there is this female shape, like a woman, but with like these nasty looking wings, not like a bat, but kind of like an owl, like it looks, and the head face looked like a woman, but it was inside of like a bird's head, if that makes any sense, with this weird mouse shaped body. And he sees it and he says, this is a spirit. It's kind of like what Abe says, where he says it's not really there in the flesh, but you can see it, right? So if somebody were looking at it, they wouldn't see what you see. It just looks like a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he's looking at this thing, and he goes, and it looks like the girl that I dated. And he don't want to say her name because it gives her power. So he's like, I'm going to say her name. And he says he turns around, he walks off, and he says this is obviously her appearing. So he said the next day he goes home. Once he goes home, he goes to sleep in the morning. He's like, he's exhausted. And he had another job. He was working overnight at this, or not at night, it was a swing shift, a call center. So he goes, I had to get up at 3 o'clock and go to work. So he goes, I was very exhausted. I was tired. So I go home. He's like, and he goes, I hear footsteps, and I hear this, like, kind of like they were like a splat, splat, like something was
Like wet footsteps
walking on the floor. And he said, I look up, and there the toilet is overflowed in my bathroom. He goes, and I hear the water running. He goes, and I get up. Not only was the toilet flowing, he goes, but the water was running in the faucet, in the tub, and in the kitchen. He goes, I got this little apartment I can look out and see, So he goes, I get up and I walk out there. He's like, and my girlfriend at that time, she was back in California finishing everything up. They had just gotten a house. So when they had sold their place, he didn't have a place to live. So he rented this small little flat, and she was back in California taking care of some business. She had an inheritance, lucky for him, right? But it wasn't nothing massive, but it was some land, and they were going to sell it. And so she was there, and she was there for like a month because her family's real like treacherous, according to him. And he said, so every day we would talk, but that day it was just like, Groundhog Day, go to work, get up, whatever. So I'm in this little crappy apartment. He goes, my wife is literally pregnant. She's in California. He goes, and this woman says, you won't have this baby. He hears this voice. And then he sees in the water, he can see like somebody's walking in the water. And he says, after he had that dream about Christ, he goes, I didn't fear anything. He goes, I stood up. He goes, and I said, he goes, reveal yourself. Reveal yourself. And then he hears this laughing, like a cackling laugh. And it goes through the whole apartment. And it was so bad, it shook the apartment. He goes, this is an ugly, dumpy apartment down in South San Antonio. And he said, the lady downstairs comes out. She's always outside, and he's like, she'd be outside cooking on the camano, like out on the patio, and she's out there making tortillas or whatever. And he goes down there, and she's like, she asked him, she's like, was that an earthquake? And he goes, no, I didn't notice. He's like, I felt bad. I lied because I didn't want to scare her. So I go and I get in the car and I take off. I do my job. He goes, and then about a week goes by. I go back to the junkyard. He goes, and I tell the girl that I was working with, her name was Jennifer. He said, Jennifer, I think there's something really evil when we go out to the yard. And then I'm not supposed to leave the phone here, but I need you to go with me. I need help, because Jesus says where there's two or more gathered together, So they go out and they start walking, and they go by the darkness. And of course they feel that thing paralleling them. They get to the end, and she gets down and starts praying. She's like doing the cross and everything. And he starts praying. And he goes, he goes, at that point, there was something there. He said, and I told it, I said, reveal yourself, your true self. This entity, he could see through it. It was like a spirit came down. It was like a bird-like thing. It falls forward, and standing there behind it was that vampiric creature, that bluish green creature that looked like a cross between a vampire and an alien, the way he talked about it. And he said that it was standing there. He goes, and it had its arms open like this, and like in a mockery of the crucifixion. And he said that it just kind of floated down toward him. But then when he prayed, he said, I began walking toward it. I wouldn't look up at it and look it in the eye. He's like, and then it went backwards. He goes, and then it kind of laid like it was stuck, almost like a magnet to one of these cars, and it was sliding away. He goes, and I heard this shrieking noise, like it was screaming, like something in pain. And he said that whenever it got to the end of the fence, he goes, dude, it like went through the fence in like pieces. And he said that and it was gone. And he said that was it. He goes, but you could look at it and tell. He goes, when Jennifer got up, she was in tears. She didn't see what he saw. She just saw like a darkness, like a shadow there. She wouldn't look at it. They went back inside and they held each other hands and prayed. He got his wife on the phone. And her husband, he's very devout. You know, they all got on the phone together and they all prayed. He said, and after we were done praying, everybody was in tears. And he said that that her husband, Jennifer, her husband used to be a drug addict, and he went to this ministry there in San Antonio that helped him get off of drugs and get his life together, right? And so he said that he told him that what he saw was a vampire, like an actual vampire. And it was something from his past, and that it had been revealed to him that's what it was. And so according to her, the girl he worked with, that her husband had been rescued by an angel when he was young. When he was 11 years old, he was trapped in a burning car. And this angel that said, I am an angel of the Lord, and appeared to him and lifted him up in a ball of light, like an orb, and pulled him out. But his sibling, one of his siblings and one of his parents passed away. So that for it was actually not his, it was one of his grandparents. They passed away, but his parent, he didn't live with his parents. His grandparents had raised him. So, and I don't remember if it was his grandmother or his grandfather, but so that's what happened to him. So you have this, this weird story, that had happened to this guy, terrifying, vampire type thing. And he said that he knew that whatever that was when he said show yourself, and then it showed itself that night, or that later the week, whatever. He knew that it was going to happen at some point. But he goes, I didn't dream in a million years that it would be a vampiric thing. He said, but he knew something was like that. Something was messed up, because the woman that was living below him, she had this little dog, and dog's name was Pepito. So Pepito ended up being exsanguinated. They found it on the like laying limp over the railing, and it had no blood, but like fang marks on it. And then this happened a couple more times to people in the apartment around him. A lady's bird and another person, a couple people lost their cats. So he thinks that this thing was getting, he said he didn't talk to the people around him about maybe seeing this or not seeing this, because the people around him had gotten so angry, and they were Mexican and very superstitious. If he started talking about it, they might think he was behind it. So he was like, I didn't want to say anything. He's like, but looking back on it, I wish I would have, because you remember when Abe was talking about that area where he was having in Elms Grove. And if you don't know, familiar with Abe, he comes on late at night, probably on the night. Abe sees Spiritual Encrypted Encounters with Abe sees. He burns the midnight oil. He's the late shift for us. And he has some amazing discussions on there. And he talks about this place called Elms Grove, where all these people were getting sick and dying in this trailer park. Well, it kind of reminds me of this, because in some ways, even though it wasn't people, it was animals, but this thing was feeding on them. And I believe it was using their life force to manifest itself. Mm-hmm. And I think either it was that Lechusa and then that woman. Now, there's different ways I've looked at this, and we can go down the rabbit hole with this. I wonder if that Lechusa was one of those witches, if that was her, right? Following the mark, or she put a spiritual bounty out on them and they were collecting, something like that. Or who knows, maybe this demon was the spirit of that Lechusa, or it was a spirit of one of these women, or it was the other that was attached to these women. Let's put it this way. There's so many different ways to look at this thing. I don't know what angle to start with, but we can start with you guys, and then the audience, if you want to give your 2 cents, that's it. Since then, he's had one thing that happened to his daughter, the one that said that she wasn't going to be born, she was going to die. She was actually born deceased, but she was brought back to life. She came back to life. The doctors saved her. So she has 3 daughters. And what's interesting is years later, that woman that he dated came to him on Facebook, and he goes, I kid you not, dude. He goes, she was ancient looking. She looked like she was 75 years old compared, which is not like I say, 85 is ancient, but I'm saying compared to what she looked like. Yeah, she looked like she was younger than him. Now she looked ancient, and she said that she had given her life to Christ and she didn't have long to live, and that her sisters, as she called those witches, were gunning for her, and she wasn't going to be around long. But she said that they had cursed him, and that for every child that would be born from him, one of them would die because of the curses. And unbeknownst to him, he had renounced those curses by forcing that entity. When he asked her who or what the entity was, she never responded again. And then, a couple months later, he noticed that there was an obituary and she was gone. But she had given her life back to Christ and given up her youth, very weird. Now, to unwrap all of this, there's a lot to take in. There's a lot to say, but this is what we do here at PRT, and so, if you guys, and this ain't no plug for the Patreon or whatever, but if you check out the stories that we got coming up, that'll be coming up next month that we've been doing. Some of them you've already heard about a little bit, like the Jian Zhang, the immortals. Very interesting stuff, thought-provoking, and it's interesting, when we at the end of the show, we kind of go around the horn, y'all too, Maddie, whoever's on, Dick Richards, Nelly, and we talk about what we think. But here on the live stream, it's really special because you can talk about it right now. And remember, there's going to be a chat that's going to be there accompanying these shows, even though they're behind a paywall. There'll still be a chat. It's not live, but you can, give your opinions, and you can go back and forth of what you think. And I'll try to make it a point to be in those episodes, because one of them's a members only for YouTube and the other one's a Patreon. But yeah, so if you have questions or whatever, which you probably will, because there's some thought-provoking episodes. So what do you guys, we'll start with you, Anthony. What do you think?
Well, I noticed that, like, he was told multiple times by these evil people. Like, the first time he was told that his protection wasn't going to be good enough, that it wasn't going to help him.
Yeah.
And then he was told that his daughter is going to die, and that he's not going to have a daughter, basically. And then both times those were lies.
They're liars.
But the thing is, those things could have come true if he would have accepted that as a reality, as a foregone conclusion.
Good point.
Because that they want you to waver. They want your faith. They want to find any little thing. All they have really is the illusion of power. If you buy into it, then they got you. But the power of Christ way outweighs anything that they can ever do or say. So don't ever let these. They can come in the forms of people, of spirits, of dreams, anything like that. Don't ever let them convince you that you're there's no hope, that there's nothing you can do, that your future is just black and dark and bleak, and that's just how it's going to be. They tell you that because that's really the only weapon they have, is to plant that seed in your mind and hope that it germinates and takes root and grows. But it doesn't have to. You keep your face turned to Christ, and there's nothing that they have, no weapon. So and I think it's I like that this guy didn't buy into it, that they didn't believe, even though technically his daughter, she did die,
Yeah.
But that didn't come true in the way that these witches, these brujas, hoped it would, or wanted it to. So it's like, yeah, okay, technically, it's like winning a battle, but you still didn't win the war. You know?
Yeah. What do you think, Tony?
I agree with what Anthony's saying, but I'm kind of curious about one thing. I mean, when he was working at this junkyard, with the darkness and stuff, I wonder why it is that the entity in the back has more control over the whole group, including what was basically like a dogman-like creature. And I mean, I've noticed in history or in some myths, vampires have the ability to control like wolves, or like they have dominion over certain animals. And I think of like the movie Van Helsing, where Dracula had control over that werewolf. And I wonder why it is that that's the dynamic that it is.
Was it Dracula in that movie?
Yeah, it's supposed to be Dracula.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, because they mixed it all together.
Yeah.
I don't think that's.
I wonder if it's like an age thing.
I don't think that entity had a whole lot to do with that other entity. I think that entity, and here's my take on it. I don't know if this is correct, but when they said that there was this entity that was like the overlord of that whole area right there, a lot of people had claimed to see like a witch, like a bruja or a lechuza. So when that thing came down, it was like a bird and it fell forward, and then there was this demonic vampiric entity. I think it was two different things. I think that thing was entering that area. I think that darkness is to me sort of a portal, and it's governed by this the devil, that dogman that they call the devil. My opinion. This is just my opinion. This is pure speculation, folks, and I don't know. If I had to take a guess, that lechuza was probably the overlord of that area.
Yeah.
Not really having a whole lot to do with that darkness. It's just there. There's a lot of dark spots, kind of like you have a reservation, a native reservation in the middle of an area, but they have their own jurisdiction, right? But that vampiric entity was basically, I think it was coming down to confront him. And of course, the queen of that area, the boss lady, whatever, if that's what that was kind of laying down and saying, go ahead and do what you got to do to this guy because he's more powerful. He's not bound to some little region or area. He's something else. And he could be what these witches were worshiping or serving. Because some of these old ancient vampires are immortals, they call them. They're not really immortals. The story that we're going to talk about on the first, is it the first Patreon episode?
Yeah.
I think it is. It's about the Xian, Xian. They are the real immortals. There's 8 of them in the world. And according to the story, well, you'll see it.
Yeah.
It's something that's ordained by heaven, by God or whatever. Like he allows them to be there to kind of do what they got to do according to the story. I'm not saying I know or I believe that or not. It's a pretty fantastical story told to us by a guy from Hong Kong that ended up in the military there. But this thing, I do believe, was something that was probably attached to these witches. Now, the fact that they drank blood to get power and stay young makes them vampires. Did they sparkle and not go out in the daytime? No. But there's probably we know there's different types. And one of the stories, and that we're going to talk about on the Patreon too, you're going to want to join. And we put some real bangers out there. Was a guy that used to be in our chat, and I got in touch with him, and he told us, my uncle's a werewolf, and then I saw him change, and so a lot of people thought he was joking. I talked to this guy, and then what really brought it home to me was it was corroborated by a couple of his childhood friends. There's 3 of them. I talked to 2. I'm going to talk to another one, and they went through the whole explaining why they think his uncle was a werewolf. But they also think that one of their dads was into vampirism and that they may have been doing it together, this stuff. See, because people don't realize, they're like, well, what are the odds that a vampire and a werewolf are in the same area? It's very high. It's very high because they are part of a coven. The people don't understand that. They don't realize that these things all run together, you know.
I mean, I'm sure there's sects of them that are enemies, but it's like,
They fight each other all the
I
time.
don't think it's underworld where they're just.
No, it's not like that. What it is that evil is not loyal.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they devour each other. They fight. And then one of those stories is kind of a potluck where the guy gets grabbed by that harpy, Lechusa, or whatever. But then that story that we talk about the Bear King in that episode. Some we don't have a whole lot of stories about it, but you know, you made a good point on that one, Anthony. How you know he says it on the show. You'll hear it if you listen to if you join the Patreon, you'll hear it. And he said, what did you say? You don't hear about anybody fighting with the Bear King. You hear about them other fighting each other, like Lechusas.
You don't hear about other cryptids
reptilians.
like fighting this thing.
They'll clash, and Abe has talked about it on his show, and many other people have too. But nobody's fighting the Bear King. You know what I mean? It's like when we hear about that, you don't hear about other things around it. You know? We've heard about rakes fighting Dogman and reptilians, Bigfoot, and they're all doing all kinds of stuff to each other.
Yeah, they'll have
We've had people
skirmishes.
tell us stories, and they've been on the show, and we've told people's encounters, but you don't really hear anybody fighting this bear-like creature. It's just kind of there, and every time somebody talks about it, it's eating something, you know. And you know, like in Kamchatka, they call it the God Bear. It's just a crazy thing. Why is this thing lit up in the Facebook logo? Are we on Facebook, dude? What is this?
Yeah. I set it up to where like we're on YouTube and Facebook at the same time.
How dare you?
How dare you?
Over here being technologically savvy and crap.
There are penguins literally dying on the glaciers.
The polar bears.
And the polar
bears drown.
I bet you don't believe in penguin rights either. They deserve the right to vote.
They probably don't. Probably don't.
I mean, look, penguins.
And now you're going to expand into other platforms.
Penguins
more electricity.
Cool. I just want to go on the record saying I love penguins. I love animals. But
you don't want them to vote.
I don't believe they should have human rights. All right, I'm just saying.
Oh, probably because they're not human.
Yes, just like no, they shouldn't vote. We should not allow penguins to vote. Can you imagine the country we would have with penguins running around voting? Don't fall for the liberal propaganda that Tony's spewing over here about letting penguins vote. You can never ever do that.
That's why Story doesn't love you.
Look what Sailor way to damper on the running jet. It's all fun and games until this untimely imagined typical man. Yes, exactly. Don't you hate it, Sailor, when you're trying to do a skit and somebody does something to the main character, especially you do it yourself? It's like I'm playing cards with my brother's kids. Welcome, Abe Cias, to the show. We've been plugging your show pretty hard here, Dave, because it runs in tandem with what we're saying, we're talking about here. And Abe is the guy. If you really want to know more about these Lechusas and what they do, trust me, his show, I haven't been able to watch it the last few days because obviously I've had some things going on. But I'm always in the chat, you know, and he, like me, gets trolled and messed with by these jerks who just don't got nothing better to do but be ugly and mean and say things. But I say it's because we're over the target. You know, why else do you sit there and waste all of your life focusing on us every time we go live, watching us, recording us, because we're over the target. And I think it was fate that me and Brother Abe became, you know, friends the way we did. And God brings his soldiers together. I believe that. And if you watch Abe, he's a true man of faith. He's like me. He get mad every now and then and cuss. He got that fire in his belly like I do.
Well, he's a
he's
real
a veteran.
person.
He's a real man.
Yeah, he's a man. He's a veteran. He served our country as a tanker. He deserves respect, and these people disrespect him and run him through the, you know. Another person that deserves respect is Jared Williams, who's a Choctaw tracker, full-blooded. But you got the phony Buffalo Nickel native up there that makes fun of him, attacks him and his true native beliefs. Another good group of people are the Blondes and Booze. They get trolled and attacked. Joe and Jesse Dole from Hellbent Holler. Good friends, good allies. They're all good people, and we get trolled and attacked. You know, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, he's another good guy. So is Tex. They go around making up lies and stories and slandering these people. You know. But, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, if you're over the target, and I believe these people and myself are, they're going to do and say awful things. But yeah, if you want to, thank you for that donation, Abe. You didn't have to do that. Your contributions, the work you do at night, to me, that overnight work you do. I can't tell you how many times I've been on patrol with Anthony and Tony,
and we're listening to you.
and whoever, and we listen to your show.
Mm.
And a lot of insight. He has some really good people that come on there too. There's a lady from what's it called? His name Brenda. If you could put her name on there, she has a channel too. I forgot her name. I want to plug her too. She's pretty good. She comes on there all the time. She's very pragmatic. She's disabled, but she is got a lot of heart, a lot of spirit.
Beyond the box.
Beyond the box. There you go. Yeah, there's Lerny. Texas Lerny. It's funny because Lerny's from Netherlands.
Yeah, he's Dutch.
But he calls himself Texas Lerny. Because everybody loves Texas, right?
Yeah.
Except for the people who don't. And we call them atheists. But yeah, so you have these people who cause problems and chaos in the community. And I think a lot of this stuff is witchcraft. I believe what we've been getting hit with is witchcraft. I believe that there are a lot of these people over the years who practice these things and do these things. And I think what this guy, Arturo and Alberto, what they were dealing with was a strong form of witchcraft. But I want to thank Arturo for telling me, hey, he's like, you want to hear a story, you know, because I thought his was pretty crazy. You know, especially when he saw the devil in that junkyard, what they called the devil, which was a black shadow dogman. And that's something, another thing that Abe talks about a lot, so do I, that these things are a demonic manifestation and entity that can appear as a physical thing. But that's really what they are. And if you looked at Bettina and Abe's pictures that they had, there again, I think Bettina was over the target too. That's why she had to go. But you see these pictures they have. Abe's got one of a lechuza. Like, it looks like a lechuza. And he's had another person come on the show and show a picture of one. I mean, so there's been a couple of them. And do you remember that Dogman thing that Nelly took a picture of at Apache Pass? That gave me the chills when I looked. And she goes, see, Abe's right. Nelly said it. She goes, you take random pictures. She was taking pictures of the beautiful bridge, you know, the water. And that thing showed up. And it was me, her, and D. And Diablo was like, dude, he goes, I feel something. When the wind was blowing, he's out there vaping. And it was Thanksgiving. He jumped back in the truck real quick. He goes, I don't know, I just kind of feel weird. You know, I was like, there's something there. And Nellie's not even thinking nothing like that. She's just snapping photos. And she's like, oh, it's so pretty. And sure enough, there was something there. The same thing happens with Abe. And the same thing happened with Bettina. You know, and then, of course, they get attacked by one of these fools that runs around with the Roach Posse. And they said, well, that doesn't happen. He's just a bunch of stupid, you know, whatever. They make fun. But the truth is, these entities, they lurk around and they hide. And the name, the jinn, it predates Islam by thousands of years. That word in Arabic means hidden.
I remember you would take pictures of, like, when you were at work, and you would just take, like, a selfie real quick. And then you stopped doing it because you started noticing little objects in the background, and one of them started looking like faces.
Yeah, I'll never forget that it's we don't have it anymore. It was an old flip phone picture that you had of that. You took a picture of an orb that was in a
big basketball size green one.
Yeah, it was a big old, like, green orb, like in this alleyway or something. And then in the top left hand corner of the picture, like in the windshield, were two faces.
I remember
one of them was like a baby. It looked like a baby face, but with blacked out eyes, and then another one was like a stereotypical like devil face with the
he had the little patch. Yeah.
I remember
and
one
the thin mustache.
I'm thinking of one in particular where you had like the mask on, and like you were taking a picture, and then it was just a bunch of orbs like
in the back behind me.
Yeah, right behind you.
Oh,
That one was creepy.
dude, what
Yeah.
happened to that one? That one was in the truck.
Yeah, that was weird.
That one was in my
yeah,
truck.
that was in your truck. You're sitting there just taking.
Yeah, I took a selfie,
Yeah.
you know, with that mask on,
Mm-hmm.
just like this part of my face. It had like a skull mask
Yeah.
or whatever, and I took a picture, and it was during the scamdemic, and then behind me, there was like this. It was there was like an orb or something, but then there was like something behind me in the darkness. It looked like a wolf-like face.
Yeah, it was weird.
God dang, man! So many people have told me they've seen things like that. You know, like this wolf-like thing behind me or something. You know, yeah, they stalk you, they mess with you because you're telling people what's going on. You know, you remember when me, you, and Nellie and her sister went to the Goatman Bridge up in Alton? Somebody had told me because I saw somebody saying about Goatman right there. I got a story not too long ago from a guy named Eddie who literally he's a native guy. He's Lipan, like Chief, you know, Chief's half. And he told me he was there with his girlfriend one night. There was nobody there. It was like a Monday night. He goes, if we go early in the week, there's nobody there. He goes, we've been there like 20 times. He goes, and then one night, he's like, I went there with my girlfriend, and my girlfriend was just tired of us going up there and not finding anything because they're like kind of amateur ghost hunters, you know. And they were at the Kling Brothers conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. You remember him?
Mhm.
Okay. So Eddie was there, and he says, man, my girlfriend got mad, and she goes, you know what? Damn it. Show yourself to us. Stop being a coward. She goes, and then they hear what sounds like hooves, like running from one end of the, you know, where there's like a soccer field right there.
Yeah.
She's like, you could literally see and hear people playing soccer, and the bridge is shaking, and there's hooves. It was so surreal. He said that him and his girlfriend, they would run. It was running toward them, and they just took off, and they went, got in their Toyota, got out of there. He goes, dude. She's like, I hope this thing starts. He goes, it will. It's a Toyota. So it did, and it was a 4Runner. But then they got out of there, you know. And I told him, I said, yeah, that right there, when you challenge stuff. And you know, here's the thing about that too, folks. You can challenge something like that. You shouldn't, but it may not happen the way you think. Like it may not happen right then. You may go back to your house or your apartment, and then it messes with you there. There was a guy who used to run a nightclub downtown here in Austin, and he was down in Corpus. You know, I got a lot of friends down there. You remember when my friend Barboza, he died a couple years ago, Yogi.
Yeah.
And he was a DJ, good friend of mine. And he was down there, and this same crowd, you know, and he was down there hanging out, whatever. He's DJing. And he said that they had played this gig. Well, him and Yogi and another guy were down there, and they were kind of messing around. They said, well, this place is haunted, you know. And they were going to go the next day to Port Aransas to play because spring break was starting. The next day it was going to be, you know, spring break. Like that Saturday was going to be big, the first weekend, you know. And so he said, we were playing it, and they said, is there any ghosts here? Show yourself, blah, blah, blah. They heard a bang come from the kitchen. Everybody got their stuff. And Tori, that's the guy's DJ Tori. He got his stuff out of there. And he said, dude, I went and played the gig in Port Aransas that weekend. He said that night, he goes, I go into the restroom down there in Port Aransas, and it's not called that anymore. It was called like Pelican Bay or Parrot Bay. Something had a big bird on it. I remember that. I remember I partied down there when I was young. I was blind drunk probably. I just remember a bird, you know, and you know, drinking, and then probably fighting. But we were down there, you know, and so he said, he goes, I go into the bathroom at the end of the gig. Nothing had happened. And Tori he goes, I was like, I felt hot, like the whole, just my body, everything felt hot. He goes, I was putting water on my face. He's like, Wolf, I'm not even joking. He goes, he told me this in person. You know, we were up at Blind Pig. He was telling me there one night when Squid used to work there. And she's putting water on his face. He goes, and when the water was coming off of it, it was like the water was steam. Like it was so hot. He goes, I look up behind me. He goes, and I see this Diablo. Like it was like, you know, fuego, Diablo fuego, like a fire demon, you know. And he said it was right behind me. He goes, it was like this charcoal, like you would, like just like if you had imagined one, and made like an AI version of it, right? But, this is my words, the way he described it. Big horns, the cuerno on the head or whatever. And then he said it had this like kind of like a muzzle, but it had like these big fangs hanging down. He goes, and the eyes were red, whereas the fire was like orange, burning. And the inside of it was like charcoal. And he goes, you could smell sulfur. And it was behind me, dude. And he goes, but what was most terrifying, he goes, I'm looking at this thing in the mirror, and it wasn't but maybe a split second, He goes, I could see people burning behind him like they were in hell. And he said, dude, he goes, I staggered out of that bathroom so fast. He goes, a couple days go by. And he said, if you talk to people, in private, they're more likely to tell you, maybe this is haunted or something. So he said he was talking to the owners, and the owners were like, there was a guy that used to work here who was satanic, and he got into it with some guys, and they burned him on the beach, not far from here. You could see it from the place. You could see the beach.
I guess he got his wish.
And he said it was back in the 80s. They had done something terrible to him. He said, but you're not the first person that's claimed that they've seen something like that, but nothing like that, nothing burning, but they had seen like a devil. Well, a couple days later, after that happened, that bar that he played over there in Corpus, it burned. Like it caught fire. It didn't go up in ashes, whatever, flames, but it caught fire from the kitchen, and it did a bunch of damage, and it was closed down for 2 months. Coincidence? I don't know, but when you stop and you play with these things and you challenge them and you mess with it, especially when there's no jurisdiction with Christ, you got to have that, as Abe calls it, a love foundation always. Keep yourself clean and leave no spiritual openings, and you denounce it or renounce it in the name of Christ, tie, bind, and rebuke it in the name of Jesus. But, these people are just like, oh, there's something here. Oh, yeah, well, yeah, show yourself, blah, blah. And then they go off and something happens somewhere else, because because everything has its own entities, these own whatever. But that's all I had to say about that. That's just a weird.
Yeah, because it makes sense that like if they're going to answer your challenge, if they can, like they would do it on their terms. I mean, like why would you answer an enemy's challenge on their terms if you don't have to?
Oh, that's Sun Tzu 101. Yeah. Fight on your terms. That's Joel Benet says, or Bennett, I think it's Joel Benet, I think it's Benet, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Pretty much never give them legal rights to you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because everything with the spirit world and with these entities is legalities. And that's the key. So if you give them, a right, whatever, and Richard's a good point. He says nothing is coincidence. It's not. It's not a coincidence. Yeah, Mike, you're very right. He says never to the 10th power there. Touch that stuff. I don't even go near. It's bad, bad, bad. Yeah, it's bad, bad, bad. You don't want to mess with any of that. Don't say things, and speak it into existence. You're willing it into existence. Don't give it more power. Folks, we are very powerful entities that God created us. He ordained us to be who and what we are. And, like I was saying toward the beginning of the show, a lot of people like to misinterpret the facts.
Yeah.
And I was talking about E.T. over there that owns Cowboys. That's a prime example. And do you see the karma of that guy? He has never won a Super Bowl and probably never will
since.
And what happened? He wanted to prove a point and just misinterpret facts. And look at what ended up happening to him. There's a guy, like I said recently, that said some things about my wife. Shame on you. I'm not going to enter into a war with you and start fighting with you again. Bless you. But, God bless you too. You are misinterpreting the facts. There's no two ways about that. You can say what you want. You can believe what you want. You can lead others astray. And your high priest over there, the roofer, he can continue to whisper in your ear like Grima Wormtongue.
Then abandon you.
Grima Wormtongue from
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, Yeah, he abandoned you the first chance he got so he could bandy around with those outlaws, the ones that troll me and Abe and Joe and Jesse and everybody, Bettina. You have your day. You have fun with that, because one day you will stand judgment, and I'm not going to judge you and tell you all these things. You know who you are. You know what you did. And, you know, it's a shame because big old stack of your books right here, there's a bunch of them, and I was going to send them back to you and let you have them so that you could go and sell them or do whatever it is that you are going to do with those, because you had pretended under Brother Daryl's post that you were going to pray and be a good person. But I'm not going to let anybody read those books. If they want them, they can go buy them off of Amazon, because I'm going to throw them all in the trash, because I think everybody should forget about you.
I don't think you should do that.
Because your work belongs in the waste bin of history, because you're such a dishonest person. We don't know what's real or what's true in those books. That's all I got to say about that. If you think I'm being a petty man, I'm just being honest. And I do believe you are a misinterpreter of the facts. That's putting it nicely. I'm going to say that about you.
Those books are like the perfect thickness that I could use it as a doorstop. So at least saved me at least 2. That's all they're
It's a
pretty
shame
much good
because
for.
and I also still believe I got scammed out of $500 and something of books that I bought that you claim got lost in the mail, whatever. There's a whole lot of things I could say. I'm not going to, but those books I bought for a prime dollar for them. And I'm not going to give them to my listeners. I'll give you other authors who are good authors that you know are honest people. So that's all I'm going to do with that. Yeah, Joel says never cast pearls before swine. That's it. Exactly. So anyways, somebody says, who are you talking about? I'm talking about Mr. Nunley. You can go and look up his first name. I'm not even going to say it. He said some things about my wife. You want to talk about God's vengeance is sevenfold. Yeah, well, it's going to be visited back on you. And if it hadn't already, it should have. It woke you up that you shouldn't be drinking so much Coca-Cola. And that's why you had your problem. So the slander has to stop somewhere. Anyways, folks, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to those that donated. I know times are tough, but we are moving to a paywall in September. Not all of our content. You'll still get the Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday show, right? The live streams.
Yeah.
But eventually that Wednesday show, we're thinking we're going to move that to the Patreon, right? So this Wednesday show will be a Patreon eventually after Thanksgiving. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If not, we're going to do an extra one. So you're going to get it. But you're going to get at least 2 on the Patreon and then 1 on the members only. Now, we didn't get to mail off this week, obviously, with my wife going into the hospital and having to deal with the things that they found on her brain. But yeah, thank you. Free Your Mind says another great show, guys. We try. Do a lot of work. It's a lot of work. We work hard at this. So here it is, giveaways at prtpodcast.com. We are going to try to mail off tomorrow. Okay. No guarantees, but tomorrow's Thursday, and we have the podcast episode coming out tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
The last free one.
Mm-hmm.
The last free one. We have to, because, and this isn't attacking or saying anything or being snarky, but you can see we didn't get a whole lot in donations here. This is why we have to go to the paywall. 2 reasons. We got to be able to, make money and do something to keep the show going, because we have to take off from work to do this. And it costs a lot of money when we take off from work. And then we know that the trolls, they don't work. So they're not going to pay for they're not going to pay for a paywall. They're not going to be able to attack us behind the paywall.
Yeah.
So, and You Shall Not Pause says, y'all check out Abe CS. It's Werewolf Wednesday on Spiritual and Cryptid Encounters. Tune in. Yeah, he's got a good show, man. I like his show. Go check it out. That's where I hang out, is Abe's show.
Gives you that knowledge.
And then Juan Leon says, hey, Wolf, what about that spaceship coming close to Earth? Well, we'll see what happens when it gets a little closer, right? And then we'll talk about that. And then Free Your Mind says, I wrote you on Patreon. Here's the thing about that. If you have something that you need, like your swag bag from Patreon, or you are looking for your Tumblr, or you want a giveaway, there is the email at the bottom.
Yeah.
What does it say there?
But I can get back to you on directly on Patreon. For Your Mind, I've corresponded with you on there before, so. But yeah, the email, like if you want anything, if you're owed anything from a swag bag, and let's say that you're not on Patreon, or that you don't know how to send a message on Patreon, you can always just send an email to giveaways@prtpodcast.com. That's going to be scrolling right there at the bottom of the screen in a little banner. If you want to give away and if you want a shirt, you just send your shirt size, your name, and your mailing address, and we'll add you to a list of everyone who's won the giveaways, and we'll mail your stuff out as soon as we can.
Yep.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. Remember this: if you are a moderator for this channel,
You don't have to.
you don't have to.
You win already.
You just message us and say, "Hey, whatever. Give me something.
Yeah, tell us.
Just tell us what you want, and we'll send it to you. If you want a book, autographed book, or that's the privilege of being a moderator. You want a tumbler? Tell these guys you want a tumbler. I don't answer the giveaway. I'm not going to say I do. I don't. But just tell them, hey, I want this, and you'll get it. So 2 things: become a member, name and green, $5. It's easy. You'll get an extra show starting in September, and then you join the Patreon. You'll get all that great swag, and you'll be able to listen to the extra show, which eventually will be 2 extra shows a week. So that's it. But if I were you, it's basically a $10 and a $5 investment, and you get quite a bit. You'll get quite a bit. And it's been 6 years. No paywall, but we got to do it. And it's going to become probably, I'd say most of it is going to eventually be there, and we're just going to have maybe a couple shows a week here because the trolling has just gotten out of hand, and we have to have so many moderators because of it.
Yeah.
$1 million, Randy? Do you take Zimbabwe money?
Extratagem X says, I want a story. Well, you've gotten a bunch of them, and there's going to be a mother load of really good ones that we put back, that we've been collecting from people just like yourselves since probably last February. We really got a lot of good ones, and every time we'd get a really banger, we were going to just let's hang on to these, and we're going to throw them on the Patreon. So you're going to get your money's worth, right? I'd say some of the best encounters we've had, really good stuff, but we got a lot of them that are going to be free. That'll always be free, and we'll always have some free content. We're not just going to throw everything behind a paywall and hope for the best. We don't want to abandon people, and we know not everybody can afford $10. I know $10 ain't a lot of money, but to some people it might be, Somebody said, Amy says, skip the $10. Who the heck? $10 for a coffee? Even
Starbucks,
Dutch Brothers don't even do that. Starbucks is ridiculous. You got to go in there and take out a loan. They have the finance department right there when you walk in.
Yeah.
They got one of the goblins from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He's like, you want a loan for a coffee?
Can I sell a kidney real quick?
And then they serve it to you with an attitude.
Get your name wrong.
Yeah.
Is this for?
Yeah, they pour it out.
Topo-
You're wearing a
Topeka?
red hat, and they think think that you're MAGA.
Get your coffee from Dutch
You're a
Brothers.
Cincinnati Reds fan.
We gotta try and get sponsored by them.
So anyway, thank you for tuning in. But before we go, let's do this. We're going to do the giveaway because we're going to mail off tomorrow. So let's see here. There we go. Let's do the giveaway.
If you haven't won before, go ahead and comment, I have not won, and I would like to win.
And that'll be your best chance to win.
And we usually go by who first come, first serve. At least they do. I try to choose.
Percy says, I've never gotten anything. Did you win before? Because if you won before, then you need to tell us what you won, and you need to send it to giveaways at the PRT podcast.
Okay, yeah. So he says he hasn't won.
Percy?
Yeah, Percy says he hasn't won before.
Okay. So then Percy, you'll be the first, and then this one here is Shell Bay.
There's also Creeping TV.
Thank you, Quack. Thank you for that donation. You made my night.
Tim Hortons gift card.
Tim
Open
Gordon?
Lines customer
What is it?
fund.
Sauceman lots.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sauce man slots.
That
Yeah.
brings a good
Yeah.
point, though. If you are Dick Richards, we can't send you anything because he is unfortunately has a case of being Canadian. And
Yeah, we're trying to cure him of
I
that.
We're
believe
praying for him.
his case of being Canadian is terminal.
Yeah.
So we're hoping he can get better.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. We got to run here. We got to get to work early tonight. Percy says I haven't got anything. Well, Percy, you're going to win, obviously. And then I'd pick Shellett Bay, 558.89. We got one more open slot here. We got KRE. What is that? What is
Creeping
that?
TV.
Yeah, we got him, and then we got who else we got?
Cal Jones hasn't won.
So let's go ahead and take let's pick somebody. Let's go do it.
I'm gonna pick Creeping TV.
Okay, so that's it. So we got 1, 2, 3 people right tonight.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't win, just come back and listen until the end of the show. When we come back on not tomorrow because it's a pre-record, the last free one, and then what is it? When do we come back? Sunday? Yeah, Sunday. So we'll be back on Sunday. All right. All right. So tell them what they got to do to win. What they got to get.
Yeah, so make sure that you send your name, your mailing address, and your shirt size to giveaways@prtpodcast.com. And the instructions are also scrolling right here at the bottom of the screen. They're just going back and forth. And they're just saying exactly what I just said, but the email's right there in case there's any like doubt on like how to spell it. It's right there for you, so you can pause it, rewind it later, and just the instructions are all right there, and you're gonna get your stuff.
Question right there. Jackie Burns has a question.
Which is that? Can we go ahead and sign up for the paywall and pay now? Yeah. So the Patreon and the YouTube memberships are what we're going to be using for the paywall. So
they're already all set up.
Yeah. So you can become a Patreon member right now. You can become a YouTube member right now. You can do both. Yeah, like it's pretty much already there. We're not using it as a paywall right now, but we're going to start using it as a paywall. But yeah, you can sign up right now.
Yeah. And Law Morgan, now somebody sent me something on the email the other day, and I needed to get out there and say it, but it was basically saying how you become a member, to donate and become a member if you had an iPhone, because some people are saying they can't do it if they have an iPhone. But there's a way to do it. I just got to find it, the email.
Well, for those who aren't also diagnosed with iPhone having, the way you can do it is if you choose that little button that's right next to the chat, it looks like a $sign. You'll see a membership.
See if I can show you.
Yeah, you'll see a membership right there that you can. It says join.
See that little. Dang it. Come on, focus, camera. See that button right there? If you click that right there, and then it's gonna say membership. You see that? I think it's right there. That's typically how you join and become a member.
The other way is through right here, right next to the bell button, which you should have already clicked. You'll say, mine says see perks because I'm already a member, but it will also have a say join right there as well.
Yeah.
And you can do it through both of those ways.
Well, Justin says I just paid $5 and I'm not a member.
Let me see if
that might.
You might have donated.
You might have just donated in there.
Yeah, so I think you donated, Justin.
Yeah, so that $5 was a super chat. You're looking for a membership. The membership is what turns your name green.
Yeah, and we don't mind you donating too. That helps a lot.
Thank you, Two Shadows. Been a member for 2 years.
Wow,
awesome.
Two Shadows. So if your name is not in green, get it in green, because after this week, starting on. It'll be Tuesday the 2nd, September 2nd. You're going to want your name in green because, no, that's going to be the Patreon show, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It'll be a Thursday, won't it? Mm-hmm. Tuesday is going to be the Patreon show. Thursday, so Thursday the 4th of September, you'll be getting the first members only content. It'll say members only on there. On Tuesday the 2nd, the Patreon is going to be for Patreon only. So. And that's $10 at minimum. you can pay whatever you want. And the reason you would pay more is because you get a bigger swag box. You'll get a whole bunch of stuff.
If you're on iPhone, Jessica, Wolf is going to find that post about how to join a membership, and we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, she says she can't figure out the member.
We'll make sure we'll get that sorted out so that you guys can figure out how to do it on iPhones.
Yeah, because if you don't see a button next to the subscribe button that says join, I don't know how else to do it on iPhone. Because those are the only two ways that I know of on a phone to become a member is by clicking the join button and then clicking that $ button like right there by where you send your chat messages. Well, if you don't see either one of those, if you have a laptop or a computer, I would try it on there.
Sean, are you talking about Dick Richards saying he's dumpster diver? Crisis Kings is prayers for Nelly, everyone. Good night. Thank you for that. Andres had a funny comment on here. I'm going to go back and look. Where is it?
Oh, Andres, actually, go on Safari, go into YouTube and press the join button. It shows up on iPhone on the Safari, not the actual app.
I can't find Andres' other comment. He said something about Dick Richards coming to the United States.
Yeah, Dick is coming to the U.S. to marry his Fiona. His true love.
His true love.
And then he goes,
oh, there he is, right there. Dick is coming to the U.S. to marry his Fiona, his true love.
And it says, Wolf, are you going to be Dick's best man at the wedding?
Well, that's up to him. And that depends on who he marries. If he marries a green woman that looks like that, I don't think I will.
I think Tim Horton's going to be his best man.
Tim Horton,
oh,
a hockey player.
Can't judge him too much because he needs to marry for that green card. And just take what you can get once you get down here, Dick. Just get that green card, man.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I'm out of here. And the exit song we're going to play, it's Nelly's latest
it's a good one
song. It is really good.
Mm-hmm.
This one's called Psalms. But actually, that's what you put it as. I think it's called Psalm 23 is what it's. We're going to play it. Here we go.
I'm creeping.
Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, a good shepherd is he, the one that guides me. Though in darkness I find myself alone, I lack nothing, for my God above me his throne. All his love he has shown. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me his throne. A silent storm of chaos follows close behind, but in him comfort I find. I find still waters flow gently, reminding me in him I find safety. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me his throne. I don't walk alone no matter where I go, on the highest mountain or the back alleyway.
restores my soul, renewed, unbroken, his righteousness spoken. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me, his throne. Guidance, protection, this is his love's reflection, guarding me from the opposition. The Lord's feet show me a righteous direction. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me, his throne. Overflowing blessings, anointed with oil, the Lord protects my soul from eternal turmoil. My cup overflows, his mercy he shows, abundance he sows. Though in darkness I walk alone, in a world so cold, this is my life above me, his throne. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever, no matter where. For the Lord's goodness and mercy are in me, a faithful love entire.